want to introduce you to this friend of mine. And this friend of mine is called the Shame Assistant. And so it's kind of like, what is the difference of guilt and shame? Well, the difference of guilt and shame is, maybe I've told you this story, maybe I haven't, but like, I remember somewhere along the way becoming very self-righteous about the fact that I had one of my sisters had this super cool camping flashlight that they went on like 1 or 2 camping trips a year for Girl Scouts. Well, my rationale was I went on probably 15 a year. And I'm like, well, I need that cool flashlight more than she does. And so, of course, that flashlight found its way into my room and into the bottom of my drawer, hidden underneath socks. I don't know how the hell that happened, but it did. And my mother is going through my sock drawer somehow, which like, why were you in my sock drawer? But she's like, well, I was looking to see if you had any socks that had holes in them because I was going to throw them away. And I'm like, really? But, she's your mom. What are you going to say? And so she goes, she's got this in her hand. She goes, I found this flashlight in the bottom of your drawer as if you were looking to hide it. And I'm thinking, of course, that's exactly what I was trying to do. How in the heck did you find that thing? I didn't tell her that, but I'm like, well, yeah, I go, like all good brothers do, I go, well, I just found it in the house. And she goes, did you? I'm like, okay, no. I went into Sharon's room and I found that flashlight on top of her dresser and I decided that I needed it more than she did. And so I took it. And she goes, thank you for being honest. And I got to tell you, man, with that kind of guilt, I didn't really feel that much guilt about it before because I thought I had gotten away with the caper, but then I felt really guilty trying to talk to Sharon about it, which my mom made me do. That was about the hardest part. I had to go to Sharon and go, Sharon, I took your flashlight. Why did you take my flashlight? I've been looking for it. I'm like, well, I took it because I thought I needed it more than you did. I went on more camping trips. She goes, yeah. What? She goes, what did Mom have to say about that? I'm like, well, my mom said that was idiotic. She's like, no, that's not the way we're going to do it. And I'm like, I went through that guilty period about that flashlight. It lasted, I don't know, maybe a day and a half. And I felt like I was apologetic and trying to kind of be really nice to my sister and all of that. But then, of course, we returned to normal. The world was in balance. God was in order again. Everything was going right, But she thought I was an idiot. I thought the same. So we were all like, normal. It was good. It was good. And that is one experience, that whole thing of guilt, because you can get feelings of guilt off of you. You can talk about them, resolve them, go see somebody. You can find out whether that guilt is valid or invalid. There are lots of assessments of how to deal with guilt. You can apologize. You can do a bunch of stuff. Well, now with shame, though, one of the things that kind of comes out of this stuff we've been working on is shame isn't really like that. Most of us don't necessarily know where shame in our lives comes from. Most of us cannot necessarily tell a story of how it started or where it started. If we could do that, we're probably in a place of maybe being able to do some healing. And the thing about it is, the go and apologize thing isn't going to take shame off of you. It's going to be a more than that, and you can't, the guilt thing, that will resolve that, but the shame deal, it won't. Shame lives in our bones. Shame lives much deeper inside of us. Again, we're probably not aware of a lot of the shame we're carrying until something else happens to us and it starts somehow kind of bubbling up, causing us issues that we really aren't aware of, causing us emotional stuff to happen, emotional responses. And that's like enter stage right, this person that he talks about, which, by the way, to review, two legitimate antidotes to shame. Antidote number one, vulnerability. That has to do with like talking these feelings out, sharing them with somebody else, making sure that somebody else is hearing them, making sure somebody else is fully listening to you, and not the person that you're going to talk that's going to go, well, I mean, you don't have to feel bad about that. I mean, that really, just put that away. It's like, they got to hear you all the way out. Amen. They got to hear you all the way out. So vulnerability is one of them. And then the other one that startled me that he talked about was like what we did last week, stuff on joy. Like, I would have never thought of joy being an antidote to shame. I wouldn't have thought about that. But in a lot of ways, it's kind of a missing ingredient because, shame says you never really want to fully celebrate. You never want to really enjoy yourself that much because you know who you are. You know what you are. There's definitely stuff wrong with you, and probably there's no way to make it right. Well, I want to talk about that piece of shame tonight. And the way the guy we've been working with, the anatomy of the shame, the way he talks about it is, he talks about someone that he introduces to us in this chapter as the shame attendant. The shame attendant. And it's like when you think about that, it takes me back to that, like the movie, I've talked about this before, but the impressions that the movie The Passion of the Christ made in my life were kind of like unbelievable. And like one of the scenes that really got me is, I don't know if you saw the movie or you didn't see the movie. If you didn't see the movie, hard movie to watch, just a hard movie to watch. It is. Probably would tell you don't watch it alone. Probably would tell you have somebody around and maybe talk about it. I think that might be all true. But it was a scene where like the enemy enters, and right away, there was nothing in the movie the movie place that would have caused me to feel this way, but almost right away in that scene, it felt colder in that place. It felt more lonely in that place. It felt emptier in that place. And so he enters, he's like dressed in these dark clothes and stuff. And he basically comes to Jesus and has all of these opportunities for Jesus to basically give him the authority that he's looking for over Jesus' life. Because, of course, the enemy, but one thing he doesn't have is like fear. I don't think he has a fear of the Lord. I don't think he has a fear of Jesus. I don't think he has a fear of anything. There's evidence of that all over the place. And so when he enters that scene, it's like it says at the end, when he walks away from Jesus, just like you would read the same thing in the scripture when you're talking to Jesus being up on this mountain, and there's all these, if you will, and if you will, and if you will, if you will, if you'll throw yourself off the mountain, I'll take, all of that. The thing about that is, though, the enemy never quits. The enemy never gives up. The enemy never stops being. And I think that's a great definition. The enemy never, in our lives, never stops working hard to be basically the attendant. And so what are you the attendant of? You're the attendant that tells you every step of the way you don't have it together. You're the attendant that tells you every step of the way you're incomplete. You're the attendant that tells you every step of the way you should be down on yourself. You're the attendant that tells you every step of the way you can't trust yourself, and God can't trust you either. And your children can't trust you either. And your friends can't trust you either. And if your friends or your family or your husband or your wife knew you like I knew you, they would be on the run from you. You're lucky they don't know that. And I have the power and the authority at almost any time, for any reason, anytime I want to, anywhere I want to. I can expose all this about you. I can do it. I'm the attendant. I'm always by your side, slightly in front of you, always kind of leading, always deceiving, always confusing, always making you feel less than, always making you feel like you're not enough, all those pieces. That's the attendant. We're going to hear more in something that's like in this chapter. It says, shame's presence is ubiquitous and inserts itself into the genetic material of the human storytelling endeavor. One way to envision shame is as a personal assistant. Imagine that you have a completely devoted attendant attuned to every sensation, image, feeling, thought, and behavior you have. But the attendant is in it for himself. The attendant is not in it to take care of you. The attendant 100% of the time with that interest is in it for himself. However, imagine that your shame attendant's intention is not good, is not to care for you, but rather to infuse nonverbal and verbal elements of judgment into every moment of your life. The attendant. The word attendant at first may seem counterintuitive, as usually it applies to someone who has our best interests in mind. But this is how shame works. A wolf disguised in sheep's clothing. I mean, have you ever met anyone that sounds kind of like the attendant? You get to know them. I can't tell you. I planted this church, about the third or fourth one, in Hilton Head. And so one of the things I learned in that church was, like everyone that comes to a church plant is not necessarily a safe person. Amen? Everyone you meet in a church plant is not necessarily safe. Plenty of people that come to a church plant are there to take advantage, are there to gain control, are there to tell you what to do, are there to give you what their personal preference is in church and show you exactly how church ought to be. But that person's also kind of playing the role of attendant. I mean, they are the wolf in sheep's clothing. So he goes on, he goes, hence our shame attendant appears in language, feelings, and sensations and images that may on the surface, like that friend going to church, may on the surface seem acceptable, common, and even normal. But its purpose is anything but being helpful. We each have our very own who attends to every turn in our own storytelling venture, no matter how large or small the moment. Our attendant is always waiting around the corner to offer advice, suggestions, and reflections with the intended purpose of disintegration, destruction, wreckage. Shame lurks in your bedroom, your wardrobe, or your bathroom, especially the bathrooms with really big mirrors. We wake up each morning and our attendant greets us with the words, wow, look at you. You really didn't get enough sleep last night. What were you thinking? You moved to the bathroom to take a shower and you're reminded by the attendant that you put on more weight. You get in your car to go to work and your attendant whispers that the conversation you have scheduled with that difficult client is going to go poorly because you're ill-prepared. Later that day, as you're bored at work and your mind drifts off to the beach where you'd rather be, you won't ever have the job that you really desire. You're never going to have the job that's going to give you 4 weeks of vacation instead of 3. You're never going to get that job that gives you 5 weeks of vacation instead of 4. You're never going to get what you really desire. You're really not good enough. All of that is a narrative that's coming from the attendant. Well, that's all taken place. The shame attendants of each of your colleagues are also quite busy, deepening their reluctance to help others. By reminding them to do so will lessen their chance for advancement. In fact, as the attendance is quick to point out, no one in this company really cares about doing meaningful work. You may be the supervisor who is reminded that by the attendant that you will not be okay if you don't make that quarterly quota. And of course, you will never be okay because your boss is listening to his attendant say the exact same thing about him. It's dominoes. When you arrive at home, your wife, seemingly unworried about hiding any sense of resentment in her voice, reminds you of the leaking toilet number 1, which you said you would repair, which you said you would repair 2 weekends ago. And the shame attendant, faithful as ever, offers you images of other failed handyman excursions, basing your mind in the notion that you are a mechanical moron. This does not give you more confidence, leading to feeling deflated and passive. All of which means, of course, that you are not likely to have sex with your wife tonight because she's not very attracted to a deflated, passive husband. And the attendant watches you, offering multiple opportunities to assimilate a story that tells you, in essence, that you are not enough, that you do not have what it takes to be okay. Or the attendant whispers that in the face of the emotionality and sexually abusive relationships you've had, no man or no woman would want you. Who would? Who would want you when they found out that you were damaged goods? Then there's the middle school geography teacher who worries that her students will not demonstrate enough progress this year. So she becomes the voice of the attendant in the ears of her students, reminding them of their poor performance. Not because she wants to be a conduit of shame, but because she's attempting to cope with her own sense of inadequacy. We each have our own who attends to every turn in our storytelling venture, no matter how large or how small the amount. Our attendant is waiting to offer advice, suggestions, and reflections with the intended purpose of disintegration. Shame lurks in your bedroom, your wardrobe, or your bathroom, especially those with really big mirrors. Whew. The attendant, one of his best attributes is he takes on in your life and mine like what this guy calls a community of voices. The community of voices are, you got the Christians over here, some Christians actually living in a place where all they know to be in your life, right? All they know to be is what? That attendant. Unwittingly, probably don't know they're doing it, probably aren't aware of it, but that's who they are in your life. Go to church every Sunday, talk about Jesus a lot, but are a million miles away from understanding what freedom in Jesus is all about. Never really going to get there. Don't necessarily want to get there because that would be like a loss of control. And I mean, they are just that community of voices that says, you don't really have it together. You're never really going to be okay. You're never going to be enough. You can never really be proud of yourself. The best you can hope for is to hang on to the ledge and maybe not fall. I mean, my question is, when you're hanging on like that and you got an unbelievable world of shame on you and you're ready to fall, where in the world are joy and vulnerability then? They would appear to be a million miles away. A million miles away. I mean, shame always doles out one significant message. The attendant, and I do love that definition, like description of like what that person does. I mean, they can be a spiritual being, like they can be the enemy. They can be someone directly in your life, operating at basically as the enemy. They can be either of those ways. But man, the thing about it is, they are never. It's like the description of physical abuse when it comes to something like a race ride or whatever, and they'll describe like what happens to somebody when you have your boot on their neck and you simply will not let them up. It's like the only thing I can relate to like that in my entire life would be the 2, 3, 4 times when we would go to the pool somehow and nobody would be looking. It's probably in the 2nd or 3rd grade, and these much bigger boys would come up and they would basically thought it would be fun to like, and I could swim pretty well, thought it would be fun to like hold you underwater until you kind of really started to struggle, and then hold you just a couple seconds longer. Like, what does that do to you? Like, that makes you go, it could make you go, the water is completely unsafe, I never want to go in there again. It didn't, but it could have. The attendant would have said what? Well, you should fight him. You should be strong enough to fight him. What's the matter with you? Why can't you swim better than that? Why can't you swim? Why can't you swim away from them? Somehow, in all that, this, Mark, is your fault. Swim away, do something different. Don't be in the pool when they're in the pool. Whatever. All those suggestions are golden after the fact, right? After the fact of what you should have done, what you could have done. It's like, yeah, that's all great after the fact. It's like the shame that comes from a situation where somebody it's a physical situation where somebody is sexually abused, man or woman. Normally that's a piece of shame that, especially if you're a guy, you're just not going to talk about it. It's going to take a lot for you to be willing to talk about it. And the thing is, somewhere along the way, the shame may talk before you do. The shame may expose itself before you expose it. The shame may call you out for being a loser, a failure, weak, not a man, not a woman, what you should have done if you're a woman, if you reverse fields. But all of that might take years. It may never happen. I'm going to pray that you do get that far, but it may not. You may be able to push that down the rest of your life. But the question is, like, when all that's happening, the attendant is having a field day in our lives. Field day. And he's asking the question like, man, where are joy and vulnerability right now? Shame's message is, you're just not going to be okay. Shame equals taking personal ownership for something that was done to me. I didn't ask for it. I didn't cause it. I couldn't control it. I didn't create it. I didn't design it. That's the power of shame. Me trying to take responsibility for something that was done to me. That's exactly what the job of the attendant is. How do we accommodate shame? Well, pretty much, we accommodate shame by going the opposite direction of vulnerability. Instead of coming to a place like this, instead of going to a group where men are, where other women are, instead of going to a group where I can talk about what happened to me, I can get it out there, I can get it expressed, and I can listen to other people say, that's not, you didn't cause that. For most of us, you need to hear that message 15 times to be able to believe anything like that. Because you can go to a group tonight, you can tell somebody your story, they can tell you that really it wasn't your fault, you didn't have any responsibility for that. It'll take you most likely weeks and weeks to be able to believe it. That's why in a place like this, we're going to go keep coming back. Because what shame wants to do is get you 1,000,000 miles away from vulnerability and get you 1,000,000 miles away from joy and get you in a room alone and definitely afraid where the enemy, where the attendant is speaking directly into your soul. Shame is a breakage of the soul. Isolation, if we try to do this by ourselves, isolation is really the first step of a fall, I think, into feeling abandoned. And once that sort of kicks in, man, tough place to get out of on our own. We've removed ourselves. What's happened is when you remove yourself from the resources that other people can provide you with, you come into this room and you're that your challenge is with alcohol. Well, what do you think right then? What do you think on week one? You might think that you're morally incapacitated. You might think that you're a bad person. You might think that you should be ashamed of yourself. You might think that it's entirely your fault. You might feel unbelievably guilty. You might feel like the life you're living is not worth living. You might feel like you're a failure in every way. You might feel like a loser, like you're broken, like you're sad, like you're a wreck. You might feel like that. But see, if you will sit down and let one other person, and I think that in every group, I think that one person has been basically ordained by God tonight to be in that group to speak to you. Firmly believe that. This is what's called it's called a divine appointment. God's showing up, he knows where he's supposed to be. You're showing up, you're not sure where you're supposed to be, but God's I'm going to take this and make this a divine appointment. I'm going to start to try to speak into you. Might take me a while, but I'm going to tell you a couple things. Number one, don't ever quit on you. Don't ever quit on you. I don't care what's happened. Do not ever quit on you. I'm also going to tell you, no matter what you do not ever quit on God. If I was to give you a third piece of direction, I would tell you, you know what? Tonight's the night where you gotta kind of stop listening to the voice of the attendant. You kind of gotta stop someday. You gotta stop now.